You're listening to the Goal Digger Podcast, episode number 146. Goal Diggers, today we are digging into Writing a Book 101 with the incredible author and girl boss, Rachel Hollis. This rock star woman is a best-selling author, a TV personality, a public speaker, a CEO, not to mention a mother of four. As if that weren't enough, Rachel was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 30 entrepreneurs under 30, and she is deeply passionate about women in business. In addition to an online reach in the millions, Rachel has written several books, from cookbooks to fiction series, all the way to her most recent Girl, Wash Your Face. And she has been one of the most impressive book launchers that I've ever met. And today she is absolutely 100% peeling back the curtain and letting us see how the magic happens. This is one of the most tangible episodes of the show, and I loved being able to ask her honest conversations and questions about writing a book. She made me want to write a book. I mean, that's saying a lot about this girl. Before we dive on into today's show, I want to read the review of the week from Critterbit. I love that username. It says, I love listening to Jenna to start my day off. As a veteran marketer, I sometimes find creative blocks in my own process. By listening to Jenna, I feel like I have my very own mentor to kick me in the pants every morning in the most loving way. Great content, fresh perspective, incredible insights. Love, love, love. If you want your review read on the show, you gotta leave one. It's as simple as that. My only ask for you, Goal Diggers, as you tune in week after week, is would you take a minute to leave a review for us? It truly means the world to me, and it helps get people like Rachel Hollis to show up on this incredible show. So without further ado, let's dive on into the process of writing a book with my friend, Rachel Hollis.
You're listening to the Goal Digger Podcast, where we firmly believe that work doesn't have to feel like work. Self-made millionaire and marketing guru Jenna Kutcher will help you redefine what success looks like. It's time to hear from the experts, listen in on honest conversations, and learn the best tips and tricks that helped others pave their own way and craft their dream career. If you're ready to dig in, do the work, and tackle your biggest goals, you're in the right place. Here's your host, educator, photographer, and mac and cheese lover, Jenna Kutcher.
Guys, I am so excited about today's sponsor, Slack. Slack is a brilliant communication channel. We talked about it on the show before, and it is for all things business related. Sort of like an organized instant message designed specifically for work topics and quick exchanges of information within your team. Slack is the communication channel of Team Jenna Kutcher. We use it every single day, and I don't know how we ever lived without it. To learn why Slack is irreplaceable in my business, head to slack.com. That's right. Find all the magic at slack.com. Hey, Goal Diggers. I am so excited to introduce you to Rachel. So Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I was listening to Rachel's podcast before. First things first, I love interviewing other podcasters and I love listening to their shows because I just think that there is space for all of us and my fellow girls unite. So first things first, thank you for being a voice in my ear this morning. But I want to dive on in and just kind of share, for those who don't know you, who are you? What is your story? And how has your journey kind of unfolded over the last few years?
Sorry, the UPS just walked in. Yeah, today's Wednesday. Fine. Thank you so much.
Welcome to Real.
That's hilarious. It's so funny. So I have an office and a staff here in LA, but Wednesdays work from home Wednesdays. So I'm sitting in here and the door open and all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is where I get murdered on the Goal Digger podcast. This is so crazy.
I love keeping this stuff in because
yes, it's so real.
Oh, my husband is like hiding in our bedroom, keeping our dogs quiet right now.
Yeah,
the reality is not what you see online.
It is not glamorous ever. Yeah. So I am Rachel Hollis and I am, it's so, you should know by now, like after this many years, I should be able to just quickly tell you my elevator pitch. I run a lifestyle media company based in Los Angeles. I am an author of 6 books that are out. The 7th one comes out in May. I, like you, have a podcast, social presence, all of that good stuff. And my passion is giving women the tools to change their life. So that shows up in business tips or how to make a dinner your kids will actually eat. Anything that's sort of going on in my own life is what you'll see manifest in my social media and in my books. And my intention always is to tell you exactly how I got here. So it's not, I am by no stretch of the imagination an expert. I'm just your girlfriend telling you what worked for her.
Oh, I love that. And one thing I think is so great about Rachel is it's like the veil is removed and here is exactly what's going on. So what has your journey looked like in terms of writing? One thing that I love about you is that you've wanted to write since you were a little girl. And so how did that all come into existence?
Yeah. So I think first it's important to say I'm a massive book nerd. Like I read 3 books a week at least. And it's both nonfiction and fiction. And I think like most book nerds, if you read a ton and you write, so years ago when I was blogging full time, I was reading a ton and then I was writing during the day. I was writing about like pot roast or how to make a throw pillow, but I was writing all day long. And so I started to think about, gosh, I really love to have a book. And it's something I dreamed about since I was a little girl. And so I did what a lot of people do is I started and stopped probably 25 manuscripts, which is what a lot of like people who dream of being an author, you start and then it gets hard. And then you're like, I'll just start a new one. So in the midst of writing this manuscript, I was approached by a lit agent, which I hate to even tell that story because it just seems so unfair. Like nobody just has a lit agent call them out of the blue and say like, hey, do you want to do something? But don't worry, like it didn't work out at all. But I had a lit agent who reached out and said, hey, I'd love to work on a book proposal with you. And I was like, in my own mind, I'm like, here it is. Like, finally, I'm just going to get the 6-figure book deal and I'm going to be a Pulitzer Prize winning novelist. And it's just all coming together exactly how I planned. And I said, oh, fantastic. I'm actually writing a story right now about a girl who can time travel. And she was like, oh, sweet holy mother. No, I actually wanted to talk to you about writing sort of like a coffee table book about event planning because I, for years and years and years, owned a high-end event planning company in Los Angeles. And I was now a blogger who was sort of famous in the space of event planning and entertaining at home. So she's like, oh, I'd love for you to write about this book. And I thought, the one thing I knew, and this is what I would recommend to any listeners who are interested in having their own books is, man, you have to do the research. You have to know the genre really well that you want to write in. You have to know who are the other authors who write like this. What's the word count that I need for this style of book? What's the process to submit? And the one thing that I knew is that if I had a nonfiction coffee table style book and it didn't do well, I would never get another book deal. People would be forgiving of, let's say, a novel because there isn't as much cost involved in that. There are no pictures, right? But if someone does a full print, color, pictures, the layout, the design, if they invest that much money and it fails, nobody's offering you another deal. So I at least had the knowledge to know that shouldn't be the first thing I enter the market with. So I said, oh gosh, I'm a little nervous about that. I had a social presence at the time, but nowhere near what it is today. So I don't think I could pull it off. And she's like, let me see if I can find a way to incorporate the fact that you want to write fiction and that you are an event planner. And she called me about a week later and said, would you ever consider writing a Romana Clay? Romana Clay, the best example of one is Devil Wears Prada. So it's when someone is writing about real celebrities or notable figures, but you change the names. And all of my clients had been celebrities. So I had, like, as soon as she asked me, I thought, oh my gosh, I know this story. I lived this story. And so I sat down at my computer and I wrote 10,000 words. It just flew out of me of this fiction account of a girl moving from a small southern town and being thrust into celebrity events, which was the story of my life. And sent it to her. And she said, famous last words, never listen to an agent, guys. She said, oh, honey, I can sell this all day long. And I promptly stopped bathing. I didn't care for my children. I didn't do anything but write this book because I was positive that we were going to sell it. And this was the start of my career as an author. So I finish the book, I turn it in, and the next step in this process is then that agent sends it to every publisher the world has ever known. And they all decide whether or not they like it. And just as a point of reference, this was right around the time that 50 Shades of Grey was really becoming a thing. Like the very first book was really becoming a thing. And just like what happens with fashion or in movies or in music, when there's a trend that becomes popular, everybody tries to replicate it. So I turned in this book, which was about me as this like nerdy, awkward party planner. And I got a call with two really big publishers. They said, hey, can we set up a conference call? And I was like, oh my Lord, this is it. Like here we go. And I get on the first conference call and they say, oh, it's like really great, like a great first start. You know, the only thing is they're like stumbling over their words. I'm like, what is this? They say, the only thing is it's really sweet. And I was like, it is sweet. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. And they're like, no. Sweet is not necessarily a good thing. We were wondering, would you put sex in the book? And I don't know how old you are, Jenna, but I felt like
I'm
an after-school special. Okay, so I'm 35. When I was little, there were things called after-school specials where you watched a video about someone like offering you crack after school and being like, we'll be friends with you if you just smoke this crack. That's what I felt like on this phone call. They were like, we'll like you if you put sex in your book. And just as a side note, I love a romance novel. I love it. I just don't know how to write that. And it wasn't my story. And I was really conscious of the fact that like, oh, this feels so weird. I don't think I could do that. And they said, oh, okay. Well, without sex in the book, no one will buy this. And I was like gutted. I'm okay. Thank you so much for your time. But I still had another call, another conference call, same thing. Hey, we love this, but can you fill it with sex so it reads like a modern day romance? And I was like, I can't. This is my story. My Mima will have a heart attack. Like I cannot write this into my first book. So again, they say, well, thank you, but we're not interested. And the very last day, the very last publisher turned the book down. I ugly cried, not like sweet tears. Like I'm sobbing on my bathroom floor. One of my children knocked on the door like, mommy. And I'm like, leave it, find your father, leave me alone. My dreams are dead. Because I just thought, this is it. It's done. Like everybody's turned it down. You're a terrible writer. It's never going to sell. All those things going around in my brain. And I had a good cry. And then I swear to you that I just thought, wait a minute. Like it's never been easy. You've had to fight your way into every door that you've gotten in. You've never accepted no as your answer. You're not going to start now. And I got up off the bathroom floor, walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of wine, and I Googled, how do you self-publish a book? And I ended up self-publishing Party Girl. And the very reason that they said it wouldn't sell was the very reason it took off. Was in a market that was saturated by a certain kind of book. Here was this book that didn't have that. So you could give it to your daughter in high school, or you could give it to the women in your church group and not feel weird about it. And one woman passed it to another, and it became a bestseller on its own. And 6 months later, a publisher called and said, hey, we're seeing the numbers from this book. We'd like to buy it and turn it into a series. And it launched my publishing career. And I always tell that story because I like to remind women and men that nobody, even the experts in the field, get to decide how big your dreams can be. Nobody plenty of people can tell you no, but it's up to you to decide not to accept that as the final answer. So that's how I got started in publishing.
I love that. I always say too, no doesn't have to mean no, never. It could mean no, not right now, or no,
not with us.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
I love that. And I think that sets the stage so perfectly to dig into what it's been like since that first book. So you have written almost 8 books. I'm saying almost because the 8th is on its way.
I should be done by Sunday. Fingers crossed.
So what has that journey looked like since that first book? How has it transformed? Are you still self-publishing? What has that looked like for you?
No. So after I sold that book and then subsequently sold, it was the first time I'd ever sold a book on spec. So just to explain what that means, when you haven't ever had a published book before, when you haven't had success in this space, you have to, this is for my aspiring writers, you have to have a completed manuscript before you even talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. When you're later on in your career, like right now, the book I'm currently writing, I was able to tell them what I wanted to write. And they were like, great, here's a check. Because I've proven myself as an author. I've proven that I can work on deadline, all the things. But when you're first starting out, you have to have something completely done that they can read. So after they bought Party Girl, they wanted to buy the other 2 books in the series. And the irony was I never, ever realized that that was a series. I thought Party Girl was a standalone book, but I also, hey, gosh, it'd be great to have more books. And I like money. That's fun. So I took that book deal. And for the first time in my life, with the second book in the series called Sweet Girl, I had to write a book on a deadline, which I really, really want to preach this over your listeners right now. Everybody who even today has this dream of this vision of, if I could just get a book deal, if I could just get a book deal. Girls, I assume that most of your audience are women.
Yep.
So ladies, it is a gift to write without a date looming on your horizon. It is a gift to write without oh my gosh, someone gave me a check. I know this sounds backwards, but writing that second book, hey, here's an advance, now turn it in by this date, was possibly one of the most stressful periods of my entire life, because now there's expectation. Now this book needs to sell as good as the first one did. There's just a lot that comes with that. So I want to encourage you right now that if you're in this space and you want to be a writer, it's not about a book deal. It's about a finished manuscript. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the second book and ended up putting that one out, wrote the third. And while I was writing the third, I got an offer to write a cookbook from a totally different publisher, which as someone at the time, I got my start in blogging as a food blogger. And so I had always wanted to have my own cookbook. And I was really excited. And I'll just tell you guys all the mistakes I made. I made the first big mistake in my publishing career, which was I signed 2 book contracts that were unfortunately due around the same time. What is wrong with me? It was so dumb. But I am a very fast writer, and I knew that I could do it. And I just wasn't contemplating, if all you had to do was write, certainly you could turn these in. But if you have babies to raise and a company and a staff that needs your help and people are counting on you, suddenly that means you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. and you're going to write after the kids are in bed. It's just super stressful. So the cookbook, I wrote the cookbook. And here's another fun fact, because I'm going to assume that those people in your tribe who are dreamers who want to write a book, a lot of them will kind of think along the lines of a coffee table style nonfiction. There are photos involved. The production time on a book like that is astronomical. Mm-hmm. So for both my cookbooks, it takes about 2 years from the time you sign a contract to the time it comes out, right? So I just want everyone to think, because I think if I could go back in my career and have the savvy that I have now, I would think through, is this worth the amount of time it's going to take? And what will my company look like 2 years from now? That's a really big, you almost have to be sort of futuristic, forward thinking. Where are we going to be 2 years from now when this kind of book comes out? What are we going to be doing as a company a year from now? If it's like the book that I'm writing currently, that I'm going to finish this weekend, that'll come out in March of 2019. So I will tell you, I am so strategic about laying the groundwork for what I want to do in March of 2019 and beyond, so that I'm writing for the future, not today. I don't know if this is too high level for everybody, but that's something I wish I had thought of, is publishing takes a really long time when you go the traditional route. That's one of the gifts of self-publishing, is that if you have a book ready right now, you could have a book on Amazon available for purchase by next week. Mm-hmm. That's bananas. And it really was a massive step for me to get my name out as an author and establish myself. I'm a big believer in, if someone tells me no, I'll do it on my own and prove that it's a viable option. And then you're going to want to get it from me later. Mm-hmm. So sorry, I jumped all over the place, but those are some things I wish I had known at the time, was just the strategy of book writing and what people really wanted. And to be totally honest with you, and this is hilarious because as people are listening to this podcast, it'll just be a hot minute from the next cookbook. Those were I don't want to say pet projects. Those are passion projects for me. I love food. I love recipes. I love to entertain in my home, but that is not what I am best known for. And that is not what my audience really wants from me. I was listening. Do you listen to How I Built This podcast?
Yes, I love it.
It's like the best, and everybody should listen to it if you haven't already. But I was listening to the one with Jenny's Ice Cream.
Okay.
Have you heard that? It's really good.
One.
You should check it out. So she's talking about the idea, and this was such a great thought and a great thought for the entrepreneurs and hustlers who are listening right now. She said she had owned this ice cream parlor. It failed. Nothing happened with it. And she was out of work for about 6 months, and she walks into her favorite coffee shop. And the only thing on, like, the joy of her life was she was going to go to her favorite local coffee shop and she was going to get an orange scone. That's all she wanted for her day. She waits in line. She walks up to the cash register and she says, "I'll have a medium coffee and an orange scone." And the girl says, "We don't have scones today." And not only did they not have scones, but they didn't care that was what she had looked forward to. And she said, I realized that was what I had done to my customers that made my business fail. Mm-hmm. She said, I was running a business for myself. As an artist and a creative, a lot of times we reach for the thing that we love instead of paying attention to what our customers and our audience really loves about us. Mm-hmm. It's like when you go to see a band, like I love Aerosmith, my favorite band of all time. And when I first saw Aerosmith, they tried to do a bunch, like, this is the song off the new album. And you're like, what are you talking about?
Give me what I want.
I came here for crying. I came here for amazing. Like, don't you give me new album. I think that that's a really wise thing, whether you have an Etsy shop or you want to write books or you have a podcast or even your Instagram feed, is really paying attention to the signs of life, really paying attention to what people admire you for. She said, she was talking about ice cream. She's like, you're going to come back for salted caramel. You're walking in my door for salted caramel. Once I have you in the door, I can convince you to try, pumpkin curry. I can convince you to try something new, but I can't get you in the door unless I can keep offering you the value that you've come to know from me. So in my publishing career, it's something I wish that I had clued into sooner, is this is really what they want. It took me forever to write Girl Wash Your Face. Girl Wash Your Face is unlike anything I've done before because it's motivational and I hope inspiring and real and authentic. And it is, if I had paid attention, if I had said, man, what do they most respond to on Instagram or Facebook? Let me write a book about that. I would have been a best-selling author 5 years ago. So that's just something, as you're thinking about writing, yes, there's creativity and what does your soul want to do and how can we weave our own voice into this narrative? But gosh, if you're not writing with your tribe in mind, you are going to be, they might buy it because they're your friend, but it's not going to pass the walls of the group that you already have. For what it's worth.
Ugh, I think that
was the most long-winded answer ever.
Rach, keep talking to me. No, the thing that freaks me out about that is thinking like 2 years, I don't even know what I'm going to eat for lunch. Like,
exactly.
That is
right?
Crazy. And if I would have looked at myself 2 years ago and saw myself sitting in my attic talking to you and recording a podcast, I would have laughed. Like, yeah. So I think that it's such a beautiful thing because I don't think we dream like we used to. I don't think we even give ourselves margin to dream like that. Yeah. But also it's slightly terrifying. So one of my biggest questions, and you are the girl to break this down, is can you explain some of the main differences between self-publishing and working with a publisher? Because I think that a lot of people just don't know, we don't know. So break it down for me, sister.
So here's why Like the biggest difference is an advance. Let's just start there. The biggest difference is money. If you're working with a traditional publisher, they're going to give you a check that could be, if it's a small publishing house, it could be $2,000. If it's a big publishing house, it could be 6 figures. For some massive authors, it's 7 figures. They're giving you a check and they're saying, we believe that your book is going to sell at least enough books for us to get this amount of money back. So they're giving you an advance. And then once you sell through your advance, meaning like I will be fully transparent. So with Girl Wash Your Face, my annual goal was, maybe I'll get punched in the face for being this honest, but I'll just tell you guys, my annual goal was 37,000 copies of Girl Wash Your Face. It was basically like, if you can sell 37,000 copies of Girl Wash Your Face, you will have paid us back the advance that we gave you.
Everyone go buy this book now because Rachel is telling us these things.
Right? Yeah, I'm telling you all the things. So it is the first time in my publishing career, you guys, that we're 5 weeks into the book and it has outsold its annual goal.
That is amazing.
I've never had that happen. Never, never, never. So thank you to everybody who's been posting it on your social. I super appreciate it. It's also like, oh my gosh, what a huge stress off my shoulders, because when someone, you need to think of, if you're going with a traditional publisher, they are your business partner. And I know there are authors who sort of think like, they're paying me, I turn in a product, it's on them. I have had success in my business as long as I've been in business, because I think if you get into business with me, this needs to be as successful for you as it is for me. So it's a huge weight for me to think, okay, you gave me this money and I want to make sure that I am a good partner for you. So thank you, Lord, when they sent an email yesterday and told us where we were at with sales, and my whole office cheered, because I was like, you guys, we have to make sure we get that. And praise the Lord, we did it in 5 weeks. Thank you. So you get an advance. Once you sell through your advance numbers, you start to earn royalties. So royalties is something that you negotiate up front, and depending on the publisher, it could be you get 30% of every time someone buys a book, you're going to get 30%, or you're going to get 40%, or you're going to get 10%, totally depends on the publisher. And that's how you could make money in perpetuity forever and ever. Amen. If you self-publish, you're not getting an advance up front. What you do get is a massive percentage of your sales. So the space that you're going to want to be on if you're self-publishing is Amazon. And I mean, you can be on Barnes & Noble, iTunes, there's places you can put it up everywhere, but where you're most likely going to get sales is on Amazon. And they have a platform that you can use. Oh, blessed assurance. What is it called? Hold on. I want to make sure. Amazon self-publishing. I haven't used it in so long.
That makes me want to sing Blessed Assurance.
Yeah, it's called KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. So it's kdp.amazon.com, and it walks you through the process. Here's how you're going to upload your book. Okay, next you're going to do your cover. Next you're going to do this. And the genius of self-publishing is it's print on demand. So until someone buys your book, they don't print it. So it's not like the old days where if you want to self-publish, you were like, okay, my mom's going to loan me money and we're going to buy 5,000 copies of this book and we're toting them around in the trunk of our car and just hope that we sell them. This is best case scenario, because if nobody buys, you're not out the money of investing in the book. I would tell you this. If you have a social platform, if you have an active and engaged audience, you are probably better off to market and sell your book than most traditional publishing companies are today. And that is just the absolute truth. Because what I have learned, and I've worked with 3 different publishers, all of which are big publishers, is that if you come in as kind of the low man on the totem pole, like this is a new author, we're taking a chance on her, we don't really know what she's going to do, you're not getting the PR support that you need. You're not getting the marketing support that you need. And you're still going, if you want your book to be successful, it's going to be you on your social media, in your email list, doing all the things that Jenna tells you to do. That's what you're going to have to do to sell that book. So to me, I kind of think, well, if that's going to be the case, then shoot, I may as well just try and sell it myself. I may as well just get the money myself. With my platform today, with your platform today, Jenna, if you self-publish right now, I think you'd be shocked at how much money you could make. In fact, a lot of authors in the fiction space won't even do traditional publishing deals anymore because they're like, why would I? I have a platform. I'm a big enough name. I can get my book into Barnes & Noble, no problem. And I'm going to get 70% of every sell. That's worth. So I guess as you're starting out, the question to ask yourself is, am I doing this for marketing? Do I want to market my company? In which case, maybe it is a traditional route. Am I doing this because I want to be a New York Times bestseller or a USA Today bestseller? If that's your goal, then you absolutely have to go traditional publishing, because with self-publishing, you're not even going to have a chance at that. Or is this about an added revenue stream? Do I want some additional income for my business? In which case, self-publish all day long. I know there's a little bit of like a stigma about, if you're not self-published, you're not a real author. No, screw that noise. I'm sorry. If you write a book, friends, if you get a manuscript done, you're an author, period. You've got a book, you're an author. I know there are women right now who are like, I have completed manuscripts, they're still sitting on my computer. You guys, if I had listened to the publishing world, my book would still be sitting on my computer. I would not be the author that I am today. I would not have the platform that I have today if I hadn't just swallowed my pride and self-published a book.
I've already told you briefly about the magic of Slack, but that was just skimming the surface of this incredible program. On Team Jenna Kutcher, we use it to share projects, ideas, answer quick questions without waiting on someone to reply to an email. It's a total game changer in small business. It saves you time, improves productivity. It's super easy and convenient. It works everywhere you go. You can even get a mobile app. And simply put, it's efficient, organized, and it ensures that every member of my team is always in the loop. I can't imagine coordinating everything without it. And I'm so thankful to Slack for sponsoring today's episode. Head to slack.com if you are ready to take your business to the next level. That is slack.com. Slack, it's where work happens. I love that. Thank you for breaking that down, because I feel like there are so many things in life where no one really removes the veil, so you don't really know. And I feel like having a publisher just sounds so like Gucci and like awesome.
Oh,
but at the
it's like so romantic.
At the same point too, like I think what you just said is super eye-opening. So my question for you is this, like, how do you stay inspired? How do you keep having content? I feel like I would write one and done. Like, talk about that.
Well, so I'm an interesting cat in that I have written in 3 different genres now. 4, I guess, if you kind of count this new book. And I heard this at a writer's conference years ago, and that is something I'd really encourage those of you who are listening. A lot of times you don't know this information. You don't know what's behind the curtain. You don't know all of this stuff until you start to immerse yourself in the culture. So if you are dreaming of being an author, if you want to join a writer's club or go to a writing conference or go to a conference that specifically is for authors in your genre, they have them all over the US and I'm sure all over the world. And you can meet other people and talk to other people. And a lot of times that is very inspiring to me. When I read someone who's just incredible at their craft, it inspires me to want to be better. It inspires me to want to do my next thing. I always get the idea for the next book when I'm writing the current one. And I heard that years ago at a conference. Someone described it as like if you were married and you've been married for 20 years and your wife's fine and all, but she's, this is like, let's switch it. Your husband's fine and all, but he's a little pudgy around the waist. You're getting tired. And all of a sudden you see this hot young thing and he's beautiful and gorgeous. And you just know life's going to be so much easier with him. That is what it's like when you're writing. So whenever you're about halfway done with a manuscript, it feels like the hardest, biggest slog. It feels impossible to get through. And then all of a sudden you start to daydream and fantasize about what the next book is going to be, because you're like, oh, another book would be so easy. This is what a lot of new writers do. This is why they have 20 manuscripts that are half done, because they've started one, it got hard, and they switched to a new book. And the truth is that the only way through is that you have to get a first draft. You have to give, I'm getting off on another tangent. You have to get a first draft, and then you're allowed to go start with the new man, I don't know why I've gone on such a I've gone in such a terrible direction. But that's what happens for me a lot, is that as I'm writing one, I'll start to dream about the next thing, which is what I'm doing right now. And then as soon as this book is done, I will start to just dabble and write things down and take notes and start daydreaming. Because have you read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert?
Yes.
Oh, right.
So
my gosh, it's so
the
good.
ideas.
Everybody,
yes.
They go away. And I absolutely believe that. If y'all haven't read it, you should absolutely listen to it, or listen to a podcast, or read the book. But the idea is that it's sort of like hippie, but I'll go with it. That ideas are just kind of floating around in the atmosphere, waiting for a human to make them real. Mm-hmm. And if you don't latch on to this idea when it's in your head, you experience those moments where, have you ever had a moment where you had this great idea and you didn't do anything with it, and then a year later or 2 years later, you saw the exact idea that you had thought of, but someone else was doing it. And it's like, it moved on. I know it sounds a little like woo-woo, whatever, but I believe that's true. So as I'm writing one book, I'll start to dream about the next, and I will just take notes. I also think it's what are those questions that pop into your mind? What are those? I keep notes on my phone, the things that I'm marinating on or trying to better explain, or maybe I want to talk about it in a podcast, or maybe I want to scratch this. But I also think as a creator, as a writer, I've never really put this into words before, but I always assume that every idea I have is worth something, that there's something there to explore. And that's not me being overly confident or thinking I'm so special. I just think, if I'm wondering about this, then maybe other women are too. And how, what's the answer here? How do I get at this? And I'll keep scratching at something until it becomes a snowball that rolls down the hill, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I realize that's where we're headed next.
Ugh. I love that. I made Drew text me. I'm a night thinker, and I don't have my phone by my bed. I just charge it somewhere else. And so last night I had an idea for an episode. I'm like, can you text me this thought? It's I don't want to let it go, and I don't want to forget it. But I love that. My sister told me this morning that my grandpa sleeps with a notebook by his nightstand because he's a night thinker too. So, okay. So Rach, we have to talk about this because it is literally the most memorable book packaging launch party I've ever had. And to be honest, so many of my friends are in the process of writing or publishing or have written a book. And so I get so many books from so many amazing people. But Rachel recently launched a book that we've been talking about, Girl Wash Your Face. And can you just talk about the process of promoting and launching and what that looks like after the work is done in creating?
Yes. Thank you for that question, because that I think is so helpful for people.
That's where the real work begins. In some senses.
Oh my gosh, totally. Here is the truth, you guys. I just had this conversation with my husband last night, and it was this epiphany moment for me. And I told him, I put my flag in the ground, and I said, someday I'm going to do an interview with Forbes or something like that. And they're going to ask me the question, what was the biggest turning point in your career or for your company? And I'm going to tell you guys what I told him and what I will tell Forbes someday. It was the moment that I realized not just the power of tribes. If you've never read Seth Godin's book, you need to. But not just the power of a tribe, because for the longest time, I've known the power of my tribe. I know the power. I know how engaged they are. I know that they'll show up for me. These women all over the world, just like you, you have all your fans. They care about you. They love you. They're your listeners. They're going to do stuff for you. That I knew. Until Girl Wash Your Face came out, I did not understand that it wasn't just about my tribe. It was about accessing other tribes, because the people who are in your group, the people that love you and follow you, they also belong to other. Okay, so if you follow me, you might also follow Jenna. And if you follow Jenna, you might also maybe you follow us because you're into business, but then you're also super into running. And so you might follow someone who has 200,000 fans on Instagram because she's a runner and she runs with her baby in a stroller or something. Well, you're part of that tribe too. So if you love my work or you love Jenna's work, you might take it to your other tribe. And I know I'm using that word a lot, but with a tribe, let's go into a lesson here. With a group of people, especially women, there's a language. It's called tribal language. There's ways that we talk. There's hashtags that we use. Your tribe knows, we're called goal diggers. We're all into it. There's also things that we do that because we're women, we A, trust the other people in our tribe, and B, we want to be like them. Mm-hmm. So if someone in our group gets new running shoes and we're all runners, you'll start to see women in the group get those shoes too. If someone in the group decides to make a playlist and it's only Beyonce songs, you'll start to see other people shift and do the same. What has happened with Girl Wash Your Face, and what I didn't understand until now, was that women in my tribe took the book to their tribes, and it spread like wildfire. So all of a sudden, I have a ton of new fans who are in multi-level marketing, they sell Roden and Fields, they sell LuLaRoe, they sell Beachbody, they're Noonday ambassadors, because those are also tribes. And so when they said, this is the book you need to read, everybody did. So what I would tell you as especially a woman, especially if you're doing anything lifestyle related, is what are the other tribes, what are the other groups that this also makes sense for? So for instance, with you, Jenna, you share so much wisdom for women who have their own business, who do digital marketing, who do social media. That applies to so many things. If you can access those tribes where this information is relevant, that's how it grows. Ugh. So all of that to say, you were asking about the influencer gifts that we gave. Because I'm a social influencer, because you're a social influencer, we know the power of that. Mm-hmm. I know that if Jenna holds up my book on her Instagram stories and says, I'm reading this and I love it, her tribe will listen. And I have seen the success of this book because it started with an influencer campaign where typically the publisher said, we have this budget. We'd like to send gifts to 150 influencers along with the book. And they wanted to send something small so that they could give it to a lot of people. And I was like, look, I get a lot of those gifts. I honestly, unless it's a friend of mine, I don't really do anything because it's just too many asks and I can't. But I would if someone sent me something really expensive. Mm-hmm. That's honestly where my head was at. I was like, if someone sent me something really expensive, I'd be like, holy crap, okay, I have to talk about this. Or just the shock and awe of receiving something big in the mail. So instead of doing 150 influencers, I asked if we could do 20. Could I send a gift to 20 people that was really good? And so, because the book's called Girl Wash Your Face, everybody got Clarisonic face scrubbers.
And they were amazing. I mean, legitimately, Rach, like when I got home, so we were in Hawaii for 5 weeks. And when I got home, we had so many packages, which is such a silly problem. What a blessed problem.
Yeah.
So many packages. Yeah. I think I got 6 or 7 books in the mail. Mm-hmm. And I opened yours and I was like, oh my God, I need a new Clarisonic.
Got it.
It was so memorable. And I think sometimes too, less can be more, like quality over quantity. Mm-hmm. And I think that is such a representation of that, like 1,000,000%.
Yeah. Well, so those 20 influencers, I would say maybe 10 of them were women that I was friends with. So they were for sure going to talk about it. 10 others I was like social media friends with. So it wasn't a guaranteed, thing. But when those women who are, I know I keep using the word and you all want to punch me in the face, but when those women, which Seth Godin would call a tribal leader, when they said, this is cool, this book is good, you should talk about it, it gave permission for the women in their tribes to do the same. So that launched the ship. That really did a lot. And I want to encourage you. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the idea that for someone to have influence, they need to have 1 million followers or 100,000 followers. Girls, someone who has 5,000 diehard, dedicated followers is way more powerful than someone who has 500,000 followers who only follow her because she has pretty pictures. The 5,000 people are an army. They will take it on their backs. They will push it out into the world. So if you're going to launch a book or if you're going to launch a product, you have to think like big brands. What is your influencer campaign? That is a part of everything we do now. What is our influencer campaign? Who are we reaching out to? How are they talking about it? It's the best thing that I could think of. The other thing, I don't want to forget to say this, I think this is any product, book, whatever in the world, you're going to have to talk about it on your social media 1 million billion times. And the way that you do that without alienating your audience is that you're going to talk about it 1 million times, and every single time you got to talk about it in a different way. It's got to be a different visual. It's got to be different copy. Maybe this time's going to be a video. Maybe that time we're going to do, like, we have a bunch of different types of ways that we talk about Girl Wash Your Face. There was the campaign for people who got it in Target. There was the Barnes & Noble special edition. We do on my Insta stories, we'll share people who have written reviews. We will share quotes, like all of these different things is a way for us to keep talking about it. And I hope doing it in a way that you're never annoyed as a follower because you're not seeing the same thing. I get annoyed when I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, you have a thing, you want me to sign up. We all follow these people where we're like, please, there's an author I love so much. And I'm like right on the edge of not following because it's just the same thing over and over and over and over. And I think, oh, please be mindful of your audience. Please be mindful that we are rooting for you. But when all you're asking us to do is buy, it feels really disingenuous. I talk about my book constantly on every social platform and an email, but I very rarely do a direct ask. And I know you've talked about calls to action a lot, and I always love hearing you talk about that because it gives me courage. Because I feel I like, like everybody else, I'm like, oh, I don't want to bother you.
It's like that serving, selling.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Hard. Yes. But man, if you don't ask, they never will.
Exactly.
And I'm really careful with my language too. So I'll say, because it's a book, I'll say, you need to buy this book, or feel free to get it from your local library or borrow it from a friend. Like, it's not about buying it. It's just, I want you to read it. So you're going to have to talk about it a lot. And you are going to have to get over the fact that you're nervous about, talking about it too much, because in social media, your audience is maybe 2% of your audience is seeing anything that you put out there. So get over it. You've worked so hard to create this product. You have to be able to tell people it's there.
Oh, I love it. That is so good. Okay, we are going into the rapid fire round. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
If anyone's ever been ready, it is you. Okay.
It's me.
What is the very best thing about writing a book?
Writing the last word on the last page is the greatest sense of accomplishment, next to like giving birth to a child or running a marathon. It's the only thing I can compare it to.
Okay. What is your least favorite thing about writing a book?
Writing the first word on the first page. That's the truth. That is just the truth, because it's just like, okay, here we go. It never gets easier, you guys. No. Never one time. Book 8, it never gets easier. It's worth it, but it's never easier.
Okay, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who has the desire to write a book, what would it be?
Sit down in the chair and write the words. Oftentimes, people are obsessed with the idea that if they could just get the right writing space, or if they can just get the right program, or if they had the right, no, there's no trick. There's no hack. You write one word and another, and it turns into a sentence, which turns into a paragraph, which turns into a page. And you do that over and over and over until you get your word count. That's just what it is. Sit down and write the words.
Oh, Rach, so good. Okay. So where can everybody find you, find your books, connect with you online, listen to your podcast? Give us all of the links.
All the things. So I am Miss MS Rachel Hollis on every social media platform. I would say, for those of you who are aspiring authors, and I will send this to you too, Jenna, I have an old post on my blog that's how to write a book. It's the 10 things I wish I had known. How do you get a word count? How do you know what genre to write, and all of that stuff? So that's thechicSite.com. You could search how to write a book and it'll pop up. And then my podcast is on iTunes and everywhere else. It's called Deus. And I hope, Jenna, I want to interview you. You need to come and share all the things.
Girl, I will be on there in a second. And we'll link all of your places at jennakutcherblog.com/Rachel. And so you can find all of our links. I'm so excited to dig into your books and dig into the cookbook. And thank you for just removing that veil and just showing up just like you did, because I think that this is so impactful in such an inspiring way, Rach.
Oh, thank you. And I have to say, because I know there are women listening to this who wish they had this opportunity, and I'm going to do it for them, for us, because I am such a massive fan of this podcast. Thank you for how hard you work, how much wisdom you bring, how much advice. Like, there is not another podcast in the world, and I love that it's by a woman, where I'm taking the notes that I'm taking, where I'm getting like thoughts it's so tangible and specific. It'll be like how to make a Facebook ad. I'm like, here we go. It's not nebulous. It's not over the top. It's like, this is the stuff I actually need to know. So thank you so much for the work that you do for those of us who benefit from it every single day.
Thank you so much. Rach, let's hug it out in real life soon. What do you say? So there you guys have it. Isn't Rachel fascinating? I love the way that she shares. And this is the girl that the second you stop hitting record, she's like, how can I help you? How can I teach you? How can I connect you? And there is so much to be said about women like that in business that want to come together and create true community and see other people grow. And Rachel is top notch. I loved hearing about the difference between self-publishing and having a publisher, and the reality that writing a book is a couple year long process. I mean, for a girl that legitimately doesn't know what's coming tomorrow, that freaks me out, but it's amazing and fascinating. And I also love that she didn't accept no. I think so often when we're starting out, we are so tender, we're so passionate, we're so wide-eyed that we hear that one no and we think that it means never. But Rachel is proof that if she would have believed that, she would have never gotten to where she is today. What a beautiful, beautiful reminder. And so my ask for you is this. Go get girl, wash your face. I love Rachel and the way that she speaks and writes, and I want to support the heck out of her. It was so awesome to have her on the show, almost like a mentor to us. And so I would love to just say thank you to her in such a tangible way. Of course, if you have any big takeaways, we absolutely love to hear them and love to support our guests. And I'm just so thankful that you guys spent today with me and Rachel. Until next time, goal diggers, keep on digging your biggest goals, and I cannot wait to chat with you next.
Thanks for listening to the Goal Digger Podcast. Dive into the show notes for this episode and all past episodes at www.goaldiggerpodcast.com. If you love the show, share it with a friend. The more the merrier. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time, you goal digger you.